I wish I could go through and tell each one how you've touched me. We have some amazing, amazing people here. And let's give all of you a round of applause. I've been blown away by the people that are here, and it's just amazing. Big Love Band, oh my God, just always. Samuel, drum solo, off the charts. That was awesome. So, yeah, it's a good place here, and I will forever just value my experience here because you've lifted me up so much, it's incredible. You gave me a shot right out of ministerial school, and just the kindness that you've shown to me and the support is it's amazing. I'm very happy to have had this experience. Okay, I promised I wouldn't go on and on about that. So Chris's parting wish, and then I brought in a quote, "If wishes were horses, this beggar would ride." And that's from Melissa Etheridge from one of my favorite songs, Brave and Crazy. It's a music reference for you, Alex. Yep. It's a really good song, and I've got lots of wishes, but I'm just going to really talk about one today. So when I came on to the center, these sheets were plastered throughout the place. And it was like the ministerial intention that we read together, seeking our new one. The statement evolves depending on who we're attracting in next. But there's, lots of qualities. I don't want to read them all because I don't want to murky the waters. But energetic, creative, charismatic. I don't know if I'm any of those things, but who is fun, loving, and kind. And so after I was here for a little while, somebody pointed out that word kind. When the ministerial search was continuing, there was at some point a vote, I believe, with the ministerial welcoming team. And okay, out of all those qualities we listed, what one is your most important? And the vote came back that kind was the quality. Thank you, Patty. The quality that everybody resonated with the most of let's attract a kind person. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And when we talk about in the mission statement, we have to be that. One, you have been that. But that's also my parting wish for you because it's kindness. It's a superpower. It's not easy. It's not weakness. But the reason why, and it's also not necessarily altruistic. You get benefit when you are kind in the world. It comes back to you. And it's something that I've just seen evolve and evolve and evolve in my own life. And so what I want to talk about today, I've got all kinds of disclaimers, which I've dropped these in there before as well. So the first part, when I'm talking about kindness, definitely I hear myself, and I don't want to sound like I'm coming from a holier-than-thou place. I'm not kind 100% of the time. I aspire to be. That's the direction I'm pointing myself. But I'm human. We're all human. We have our moments. And so, a little patience and forgiveness with one another is important. And so I'm not trying to stand up here and act like I've got it all figured out. I don't. But I got some things figured out that have been better in my life. So kindness can truly shift the world. It's hard to be angry at somebody who is coming at you with kindness. It takes I've seen it too many times in my life where somebody's in a bad place and they're maybe saying bad things or doing bad things or angry things or aggressive. And when they don't get that resistance and instead they're welcomed with some sort of inner knowing of, how are you? What's going on in your life that's causing you to act or feel this way, and how can I help? It breaks that energy. And it's very hard to do at first. So one thing that, when somebody, I think what keeps a lot of people away from the kindness, I want to talk about when we maybe inadvertently hurt somebody, maybe it's an accident, or maybe just unintentionally harmed. whether, we said something that we shouldn't have said about somebody or whatever. When we do that and we recognize that we've caused pain to somebody, it doesn't feel good to acknowledge that. And our self-preservation is to say, well, at least my self-preservation, my tendency is to protect myself from having others see my error. And I've seen this, like growing up. I've seen it as adults. Maybe a child gets hurt by their parent or a teacher or caregiver in some way. And you'll hear the person, say like, oh, it doesn't hurt that bad. Or, and we downplay like, oh, you're being dramatic. You just got to let things go. Different little ways that I think maybe we think is going to bring some comfort to the person that was wronged. Sometimes we get defensive too. Like, oh, that's not what I said, or I didn't, mean like that. But what we're missing is that person's hurt. And so, well, it doesn't feel good to admit ourselves that we've made a mistake. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. That's what we do. We're going to step on each other's toes. We're going to make poor judgments from time to time. We're going to learn and grow, maybe biases or other things we've had. Hopefully we learn and grow out of them. So I'm going to use just kind of one subject here what I want to do is offer a different way of responding, a different way of being or moving. And for a lot of you, I think you're probably already doing this in your lives. But the reminders are good. Reminders are good for me. So I'm just going to present an alternate way of thinking here. So one thing that we've done with my children, and I have to give my spouse all the credit for this, is when one of the kids have done something to the other one, and say it's an accident, like, oh, we were playing and they hit me too hard and now I'm hurt. And the other person's like, I didn't hit you too hard and you hit first and you did that. And that injury just sits there and festers. And so we're like, when you accidentally cause somebody harm, the first thing to do is just acknowledge it. I'm sorry. Just an apology or just an acknowledgement like, oh my gosh, you are hurt. And rather than getting defensive like, I didn't do it, which is that's the natural tendency because we're protecting ourselves. So we directed kids to like, okay, first off, acknowledge the hurt and then ask, how can I make it better? What can we do? And it's just a way of shifting out of that defensiveness and out of that self-preservation. My notes are kind of wavy today. And just asking, how can I make it better? It's just a kindness and an awareness. And it diffuses that situation as opposed to when we don't want to admit that we have caused someone harm. Now, okay, more disclaimers coming in there. Reacting in this different way, it's not like a catch-all, covers all the bases. There's all kinds of different things that happen in this world, and I definitely never want to downplay or minimize other people's experiences. And sometimes the things that happen to you, maybe it was through somebody's negligence or something else. Sometimes there's even like a crime involved. I'm not saying that this is just blanket, free pass, that everybody walk all over you. That's definitely not what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to break the momentum because I know in my own life, when I started, the more that I lean towards kindness, the more I lean towards forgiveness and acceptance and patience. And man, is it a practice and it takes lots of work. But the more I've done it, doors open up. People reach out. Like the love that you've shown me here is unbelievable. So this is to all of our benefit. It's to your individual benefit if this resonates with you. Coming from kindness, coming from compassion. I I'm hesitant to promise because nothing's guaranteed. But as close as I can come to a promise, your life will improve when we just start thinking about other people, thinking about who you're interacting with, thinking about your thoughts you hold towards others out there in the world. Even like people you don't know, people that you might hold animosity towards, ideological differences. All of our thoughts carry a vibration and an energy within us. And when we shift our way of okay, I referenced it in the past, the WWJD, what would Jesus do? Jesus was one of the masters, of the many masters that have walked this planet and shared wisdom with us. But if I break that momentum and just ask, what is the kind thing to do? What is the thing that leads towards more harmony, more compassion on this planet? I come from a different place, and it's really hard to then fight that fire with fire because just breaking that momentum shifts something, and it draws up a wisdom and an inner knowing from us. So I wanted to reference the physical response. So there's a doctor named Jill Bolte Taylor, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. She had a near-death experience that changed her life. And before that, she was a very pragmatic person. She was a neuroscientist, very pragmatic. If you can't see it, taste it, touch it, feel it, it's not real. It doesn't exist. But after she had her experience, I'm not going to go into all the details, but it was profound. She just knew that there was something more spiritual going on. But what I want to bring in today is from her scientific background, her part, because this is a practice that shifts everything. When something happens to you and you're injured or you're threatened, fight, flight, or you know the words for fight, flight, fright, freeze, fawn, I don't know, all those. But when that happens, there's a physical or physiological response and an emotional response. And that physical response is adrenaline and cortisol, and it pumps into your body, and it gets you, ready to take care of business, whatever it is. And if you got to run, it sends all that to the muscles, or wherever you need the energy to go. If it's something you have to think about, it's going to send all the blood and chemicals there. And when we're in that state of fight, flight, or freeze, we're not rationally thinking. We're not thinking from a higher perspective, from a deeper consciousness. We are in survival mode, and that's when we're going to react. We're going to lash out and protect ourselves. But Dr. Taylor talked about it takes 90 seconds to dissipate that adrenaline and that cortisol and whatever other stress hormones rise up. Generally 90 seconds is the rule of thumb, maybe a little more, a little less. But to do that, you have to sit down and acknowledge what's going on and disrupt it. What happens is that 90 seconds that it takes the body to process that adrenaline out turns into an hour, turns into weeks. Because every time we replay what happened in our mind, the body doesn't know the difference, and it puts those chemicals back in your body, back into your reaction. One, those chemicals, they're free radicals. They break our bodies down. They make us age more quickly. They're not good for us, but I shouldn't say that. Good and bad, duality. They are good in some ways because they protect us in those moments where we need it, fight for flight. But there's no more saber-toothed tigers anymore that cause that physical reaction in us. And so when it's just the little things, the little rude thing that this person said, I don't need to flood my body with those chemicals, but it's still going to happen because it's our instinct. It's in our DNA to have that reaction. But the beautiful thing about this teaching, the science of mind, when you change your thinking, you change your life. You have that reaction, but you can let it dissipate just by sitting down. I'm going to give you a technique here in just a second, but in that 90 seconds. And when you're done with that 90 seconds, you're going to come from a deeper place, a deeper knowing. And what sounded rational a second ago of how you need to handle this situation, all of a sudden doesn't sound quite the same. And like it's, getting more into our frontal cortex, looking for other solutions that might benefit more people in bigger ways. So the easiest way for me that breaks that physical reaction is just a breath technique. And we talk about so much here, whenever anything's going on in your life, when something comes up, first thing to do is just breathe. Take a moment and breathe. But the breathing method that I'm talking about, very simple. This is the most simple one that I know. You breathe in and count. I breathe into like a 4 count. So just like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the exhale, we're going to count to 8. So your exhale is twice as long as your inhale. This kind of basically tricks the mind and tricks, the body sends messages back. The body wouldn't be able to do that type of breathing if it was in fight or flight mode and trying to run. So when you just do that breath, and usually within 6 to 7 breaths of that, I can feel like that body letting go. And then that adrenaline drops. Because that, again, with the mind, the body not knowing the difference in the mind, you could think of that same injury, that same thing that somebody did to you a month later and still get that same response going. And this isn't a talk all about forgiveness, but that's part of that kindness. If you can find ways of forgiving, remember, it's not saying that person's okay. We're forgiving primarily, firstly, for ourselves. So just shifting that energy. If I can hold a thought of compassion, I'm going to go forward differently in the world. And I'm going to be more patient, and I'm going to be more loving. And what the really cool thing is that I see it coming back to me. And now that whole idea of when we accidentally or intentionally cause a harm to somebody, shifting to that idea of okay, how do we heal this? How do we move forward? It's a hard conversation to have. But when we talk about shifting, a shift in human consciousness that's occurring on the planet that we've been talking about, which I am fully, 100% full in, that yes, that's what we're seeing. It is crazy. We are shifting into a newer way of being. More and more people are having spiritual awakenings and reaching out for this kind of teaching. So in order to create that shift, just like on the individual level, if nothing changes, if I don't make a change in my life, nothing changes. And so we've got to try new things and stuff will change. And I just quickly want to reference, we talk a lot about from the micro to the macro, or as above, so below. These concepts and these ideas, we can see the pragmatic benefit of it. If I'm kind, people are going to generally be kind back. These concepts work on the collective scale as well. And so our humanity, we've got a lot of open wounds. There's a lot of injuries that have never been healed, collective injuries. Talking about entire marginalized communities that are saying, I'm hurt. Will somebody please acknowledge that I'm hurt? And lots of other people that it doesn't matter where you are, we're all hurting in this together. So there's never been collective apologies for things that we've done in the past. I guess I shouldn't say never. There has been some. But we still have healing to do. But it begins on an individual level, and it works the same way on the collective level, but one by one, as we all treat ourselves with greater kindness, treat each other with greater kindness, that's how the world changes. It's not going to come from one central source of one leader that wants to tell us be kind, and all of a sudden that kindness is going to just sweep the planet. It works the other way around. It comes from the ground up, the grassroots, and that's how we change this world, and that's how we create a world that works for everyone. So my parting wish is for you to experience more and more love, more and more kindness, and you experience that by being it. So creating a shift in consciousness, we're talking about the evolution of humanity. Species adapt in order to improve their chances of continuation. Human beings have learned how to adapt. And we've gotten to the place where we're into the ability, we've evolved to a place in our minds where we can talk, very complex thoughts. We can reason, we can logic, all kinds of stuff. And it's all gotten us to exactly where we are. But we're still somewhat in that, like a war consciousness of, defend at all costs. If I want to get something, I take it. Might makes right. We're in this consciousness. And if you just think about it, like logically, that doesn't go anywhere good. We've evolved at such a place where we can end our existence in a matter of minutes if we wanted. But that shift in consciousness, which I am 100% convinced is happening, but then again, I'm not a scientist on that. In order to evolve, we have to change something. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And so that's what I want to offer for the world, is that we can absolutely shift our consciousness, we can shift our own being. And the way that I've seen responses in my life, I know that that's a global thing. It's really hard being here, y'all. I love you so much. Okay, so I'm just going to get to where we're heading. So one other thing that I want to leave on the parting wish, I came across this quote last week, and it's from Byron Katie, and they said, "Anything you want to ask a teacher, ask yourself and wait for the answer in silence." Yeah, it hit me too. So in those moments when we're injured and we take our breathing, we do our breath, 4 in, 8 out, and we shift that consciousness, that sets the stage for asking. And so we break that knee-jerk reaction and we evolve into a new way of being. And we say, what's the enlightened choice here? What's the enlightened response to what's happened? What's the enlightened response to what maybe I've done to somebody else? Just taking that pause, shifting your physiology to dissipate the adrenaline and cortisol. All of a sudden your mind, it opens up into many more possibilities, many more options. There's better options than that, throwing gasoline on the fire. But you have to break that physiological response, and you have to have that intention. And when we do, it's amazing what comes up in consciousness when we take time to go within and expect answers to be there. So our spiritual principle for this week is very simple. You are God. Everybody. We are all that divine, individualized points of that one consciousness. Our spiritual practice, I got that one in there twice. Our spiritual practice is to practice. Every time that you do something that you weren't normally going to do, when you say, okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to still my mind just to be closer to my highest self. Just taking those moments and doing all the different practices, because we've talked about a lot here. We're always teaching classes that offer many different practices between journaling, meditation, hypnosis, automatic writing, journaling, all of these different practices. Find the ones that resonate with you, that speak to you, and they'll change, you'll replace them, bring in other ones, but just practice. If you're seeking that highest self, practice. And then our affirmation, if you'll join me, I bend the arc of human evolution towards greater and greater kindness for all. Let's do that one more time with some love. I bend the arc of human evolution towards greater and greater kindness for all. All right, and so with that, let's take it within. Just acknowledging that there is only one life. There's one life force that is all life. Each and every person that's breathing, that hears these words, they're sharing the one life energy. It's infinite. It never depletes. It never runs out. It is everywhere in everything, in all living things and all inanimate objects. It is the very glue of the universe itself, that one life force. And each and every person is that. I am that. I am one with that. There's only one consciousness that stems from this one life, and we all share and have our being in that consciousness, in that one mind. So I know that there's an impulse, a drive, an inspiration in our collective humanity that is leading us towards greater vistas, recognizing that as we help another, we help all people. When we help somebody else, we help ourselves. When we respond with kindness, we inspire more kindness. When we focus on that love with that capital L, that energy, that life, that mind, lifts us into higher thoughts, connecting with our highest self, knowing that everything in this physical world is all the world of effects. And we can shift and create that in a new way by being mindful of what is going through our heads at any moment. So in gratitude for every seeker, gratitude for the creative mechanism of the universe, the way it takes our thoughts and our intentions and is constantly creating and shifting reality for our experience, for our benefit, for our growth. Maybe find the inspiration to co-create, to choose the highest response in all situations, and to just know that spirit leads by love, inspires by love, and when we tap into that, we are infinitely more powerful than when we are feeling separated. So in gratitude for everyone on their own individual path, knowing that we all lead to the same destination, which is back into the one, but knowing our true selves as an emanation of the divine, to know that for the first time. So with that, with the gratitude in my heart for my experience here for these last 2 years, for each and every one, gratitude and love for our beloved practitioner Karen, for peace and harmony throughout this planet, and for this shift that's already happening. It's already happened in the mind of God. So now I offer thanks for the privilege of seeing it unfold in our lifetimes. So I release these words and I affirm them by saying, and you can join me with this, and so it is. So it is.